Welcome to Powered by Instinct, a podcast for professionals who think about how your fundamental nature drives performance. In each episode, Kolbe experts will interview top performers, team leaders, consultants, and coaches to discuss identifying team members' strengths, aligning those strengths with their jobs, and optimizing individual and team performance. If you're interested in getting more done more naturally, then let's jump in.
Welcome back to Powered by Instinct. My name is Toby Phillips. I'm the head of marketing here at Kolbe Corp. Today, I have another really fun episode. You might be familiar that each year Kolbe holds the Conative Excellence Awards. And today I want to introduce you to two more finalists for the awards this year. Now, these finalists are for the Kolbe Enterprise Award for organizational leadership in building Conative excellence. And what that means is that these Kolbe certified consultants are working within their organization to use the power of Kolbe to increase productivity and just improve the lives of their employees and often even with their clients. So I got the opportunity to talk to Clare Willson and Shara Wokal from Riff Creative. I was also able to talk to Hillary Snyder of Riverstone Communities. And now both of these organizations are using Kolbe really, really well. And I'd love for you to hear what they're working on right now. So Shara, maybe you could talk to me about why have certified people? So, there are some companies who do this on their own and they never invest in getting somebody certified. Maybe they just use us internally at Kolbe, or maybe they would hire a certified consultant to come in. Why do you guys invest on having those people in your team?
Yeah. Two reasons. One, because it is so foundational to who we are, and we do have a culture of curiosity and learners. And so, those of us who are certified recognize, and I say this all the time, Kolbe exists whether you know it or not. And so, recognizing that that's what we believe is an inherent truth. Just why wouldn't you want to know more? And so that's one reason. The second reason is because it is a service that we offer as part of Riff Creative. So we have people hiring us to be able to help address, various coaching requests that they have. And Kolbe is just a part of what we offer to all of the clients who come to us for coaching. And so having more just gives us, a way to be more scalable.
And those coaching clients, how do you present Kolbe to them? Do you have set packages or a set process that you do with the coaching clients? And, I guess maybe if there is any, touch on any resistance you encounter with an assessment, because we know that exists.
Yeah. I would say, and Claire, feel free to jump in here, but ultimately, we work to address the issue that the client is coming to us with. So, if it's burnout, if it's conflict, if it's just, continuing to evolve the culture of their team, we work to address that. Kolbe is, like I said, we believe that it exists whether you know it or not. And if you don't know it and you are just working to address the cognitive or the affect, you're missing a huge component. And so it's something that we just say is part of our process. Plus, before we work with anyone, we want to know what their MO is so that we can best serve them. And that's usually the initial introduction. From there, we really don't get a lot of pushback because once someone takes their A and gets the interpretation and understands the value of that, and they're just intrigued and want to know more. I honestly cannot think of a time where somebody hasn't taken or has taken the A and not been interested in using it in broader coaching services.
That's great. Would it be accurate for me to describe it then as you're actually not selling Kolbe, you're selling a coaching solution for this client?
Yes, 100%.
I've been doing a bunch of these interviews lately, and I think that's one that is bubbling to the top. We get asked over and over again, Toby, help me sell Kolbe, help me sell, especially for the brand new certified consultants. They're just looking for that golden bullet. And I have been saying, to be honest, you shouldn't be selling Kolbe.
Right.
That should be sort of maybe the foundation that's ingrained in your package, but you should be selling you and your knowledge as whatever it is, a self-help coach or a executive consultant or whatever. So I'm just
and I think that's exactly what we're talking about, because it's not about we're trying to invest so much in our team so that they understand truly how they're operating and how we operate best as a team, and we're just showing that. And that seems to have that's really attractive to people because they might come to us not for coaching. They might come to us for graphic design or for any other number of our services, but there's something about the team. There's something else that they're like, oh, we didn't know we wanted coaching, but that's what we want. And so I think that, to your point, Toby, that is so powerful, because if you can, as a team, really infuse it, use it, practice it, it takes away the selling part, because you're just showing, you're telling your story of it. And when you tell your story of it, there's something that rings so true to people that they want some of that. They want that too.
Right. So my next question, I'm actually hoping you guys can, you seem pretty humble, but I'm hoping you can brag for a minute. Like, what are you most proud of in the company you've built at Riff and the team you've built and what you guys are able to do?
I am most proud of the fact that we have a culture where people do feel free to be themselves. So I know that is a core component of Kolbe. So I'm not saying that to get points or anything. It's actually true. So we focus on results, not necessarily the how to do things. And we encourage people to do it their way.
Yeah, similarly, I think I'm most proud of when you get to work with a team that doesn't understand this about themselves, and they trust you enough to come in and spend time with you, invest their time, invest their money, and you get to see kind of before your eyes a transformation from, not understanding, or kind of maybe always knowing something instinctively that, they might have known something about themselves, but they didn't have a way to talk about it. But when they get this framework, and when they have this understanding, there's often a moment where somebody who has had their MO weaponized against them, or they've seen something that is truly a strength that has always been presented to them as a weakness. So when you are able to reframe that and help them understand that an area where they have a lot of pain and a lot of frustration can actually be looked at as a real positive and as something that's necessary and vital to a team, I think that's what I am the most proud of, is when I get to be a part of that moment with a person or with a team. That really can change everything, because they come in one way and they leave. They have a new mindset and they have a new understanding of what can they do to move forward that was totally invisible before, because they had no way to even talk about it. So I think that's the most impactful moments for me, are around that moment of, oh, I didn't know about this, and this could really change. This could change the way I work. This could change the way I parent. This could change my relationships. I think that's the most rewarding for me.
Shara, given your unique role, and I think it's unique, maybe it's not, as the CFO and the CHRO, talk to me about bottom line with Kolbe. So there is a reason that the CFO still says, yes, we should be doing this Kolbe stuff. So what are the tangible bottom line benefits?
Yeah. People work more efficiently and more productively. We not only have a language that allows us to really kind of shortcut communication in a way that's really productive, it also shows up in our results. So if somebody is free to do it their way, they're going to do it typically much more efficiently than if we told them exactly how to do it and it was against their grain. We also fully believe in synergy. And so if we're able to recognize, even if, say, our graphic design team, we have a few people on the graphic design team, we don't have synergy just with those few people, but they know who to pull in from the rest of the team to get synergy. And so if they're having a meeting where they know that they probably are going to need some of those strengths, create synergy within that meeting, they'll pull people in. And we believe not only do we get better productivity, we get a better end result.
Kolbe pretty much fits into everything that we do, or a large part of what we do. So it definitely starts with hiring, right? So we utilize the Kolbe A assessment. Pretty much anybody that becomes an employee with Riverstone completes a Kolbe A. And we use that, to assess, okay, this is the team that they're joining. This is the manager that they're going to be working with. Is this going to be a good fit? Are they going to be a good fit for the role based on how we understand it to work and where those have been successful in the past? we definitely use the right fit piece to do that, to help us make those decisions. So once we ensure that we've got the right person coming in, it just is ongoing. So as soon as, well, not as soon as, but within a few months of starting, they go through an individual interpretation, each team member does, of this is what your A means. And then there's also a discussion with their supervisor, and they do the A to A comparison. So this is who you're going to be working with, and this is, and vice versa, right? To ensure that there's success there. So there's that interpretation, so they understand how they best work, how they can maximize their strengths. And then there's just ongoing discussion. We have a book club that recently started where they're doing the Understanding Your A workbook. So they are going through that as a mini cohort. There's really no more than like a dozen people kind of allowed in these book clubs at any one time, and that's intentional to allow for good discussion, good learning. So there's continuous understanding there. And then we have, company meetings that happen a couple times a year. And Kolbe has become a topic of conversation. It is usually a training session that is had in those meetings. And that's a pretty big deal because we have very limited time at these meetings. We're very, exclusive with what we train to and make sure that it covers the most important topics. But that kind of shows the value that Kolbe has with us, essentially. So yeah, that's really how it's just, and it's really pretty great. I mean, it's becoming like part of our lingo. So even when we do like project teams, like we've got a big project and we're like, okay, who are we going to use to help us here? We pull out the A's and we look at like team synergy as best we can. And okay, who's going to help us, make decisions and do the research but be willing to move stuff forward when we need to. Like it's really pretty great. And ultimately it's helped us see a lot of success. I mean, turnover has reduced and really just overall team member satisfaction has improved, right? So, I mean, when you work in an environment where you can do your best work like naturally, that goes a long way. I mean, obviously Kathy says that all the time. So, but we genuinely see it, folks enjoy what they're doing because it plays to their strengths for the most part. And when it doesn't, they know how to manage it. So it's pretty great to see it for sure.
Great. So talk me through the very, very beginning. So you're gonna give somebody brand new an interpretation. How do you guys approach introducing Kolbe? How do you say, hey, you took this thing, here's what it is, here's why we're going to talk to you about it? Because I imagine some people come in and are like, these guys are going to give me this test. Like, I don't know, am I going to fail? Like, what are we doing here? Why am I doing this? So how do you sort of set employees up to fully understand why you're using Kolbe and how it'll benefit them?
Well, yeah, when we go through the interpretation and they've kind of had their test done already, it's presented as a way of like helping. Like we are going to take some time to really talk about you and understanding your strengths, what you're good at, and we're going to help you understand like how you best work. So when you tell people like we're going to talk to where they do well and where they can succeed and how we're going to help set them up for success here with Riverstone, and it's presented kind of part of your onboarding. Normally when folks are onboarded with us, they're in a very like learner, like tell me everything that I can type thing. And so we definitely kind of play to that. And so usually it's pretty well received. And then like once you start talking about it, they're like, wow, you're like a mind reader. That's exactly how I work, and then they're just like totally bought in at that point. So yeah, that's kind of really how we introduce it. And it doesn't take like much selling or I mean, like once you, again, talk to them about where their strengths are and then walk them through what their MO means and they see the correlation. I mean, I've never had somebody tell me, well, you're totally off base and you don't know what you're saying. Like that it's quite the contrary. So it's not a hard sell for sure. And then people are just into it at that point and want to learn more. So.
Awesome. So then talk to me a little bit more about, you mentioned starting a big project and sort of being very thoughtful about how you put the team together. What sort of questions, or maybe do you have an example of a project that you guys were working on recently where you're like, hey, we need certain strengths on this for this reason. And so where do we find that in the organization?
Well, I know a time where we did use this was we were working to kind of create a process committee. Okay, we're a very process-driven organization. Pretty much everything needs to be documented so anybody can duplicate something that needs to be done. Okay, so, and we have kind of a committee around this to where any new process that is created needs to be brought up through the committee. Like they review it, make sure that it makes sense, all the steps are there, they could duplicate it if they needed to, and that it's, truly necessary and covering something important. So, we kind of take a look at the project, like what's needed, what is our ultimate end result, and what type of folks do we need to have on this team. So obviously folks that are very detail oriented, willing to dig in, willing to go through the steps and get into the weeds essentially to make sure that this is right and question the details. But then, there's the other side of like, okay, like we've looked at this enough, we've beat this, to death type thing. Like, are we moving forward with this process or are we not? So we need those who are open to putting their foot down, like, guys, we've got enough, like, let's move this along. We're either doing it or we're not, so kind of avoids that paralysis analysis type thing. So yeah, I mean, I think, we assess based on what we need, and then we'll look for those like high fact finders to do the detail work, but then we'll also look for those that have decent follow through to keep us organized, make sure all the steps are together. And then also the quick start folks, like, okay, we're going to just like take a risk here. We've talked about this enough. Like, we're either good or we're not, and let's move forward. So, and then there's always the benefit of the implementers too, especially when a process involves like tangible things and like, all right, let me actually mess with this and see if this works, type thing. So, it's having a full understanding of what you need, what your ultimate outcome is. And then we will look at MOs and try to match it up accordingly. So, and then we'll do kind of the comparisons and try to look at the team synergy and see if it's there. We do unfortunately have quite a bit of cloning in our company, so sometimes it could be challenging. We're not 100% synergistic always, but we definitely try. So.
And then it sounds like you have introduced, at least for some folks, using the other assessments. So maybe Kolbe B and making sure that people are really aligned with their role and perhaps moving people around. Can you give me some background on like why you decided to start using those assessments and maybe some examples of where you've adjusted people's roles?
Well, it's actually just something that came up recently. So we just recently hired on my team a recruiter. Okay, so we went through the whole process, of where we have had Kolbe B's done for this position in the past, and then the manager of this position essentially completed a Kolbe C as well. So, and it's really helped us to it with this current person and then in previous, like, okay, if where might we see some stress or some strain here? Where do we have some disconnect potentially with what the expectations of the role are versus what we really need type thing? And if we need to clear something up. So yeah, it's really for us, it's helped like with cohesion and understanding, because at times we weren't so much necessarily with this recruiter role, but I've seen it in the past to where the individual thinks their role is one thing and their supervisor has very different expectations. And so just having a conversation about from the supervisor's end, like, no, like, look, you're thinking about this not the right way. You're adding stress where it's not needed. You really are doing what I need you to do, but I need you to understand what I need you to do type thing. So that's really helped to just promote some great conversation and reduce some stress in that way. So yeah, I would say that's kind of how we've done it. I've seen it on my own team, like really help make sure there's alignment. And it's not perfect. I mean, you're never going to have something where like stress is completely eliminated or strain is completely eliminated, but it's definitely helped avoid it for sure as much as possible. So does that answer your question or help?
Yeah, it does. Tell me a little bit more about the book club. So you're using the Activate Your A guide. Like,
Yep.
what is the process? Well, my first question is, why did you decide to do that? What was the end goal there? And then sort of how do you set it up, and what are the types of things you talk about?
Yeah, so actually my cohort, Carrie, she runs this book club. She's also a certified like trained consultant with Kolbe. So, but where did it start? It started with her and I actually did it together. We did the A to A workbook to start just as trained folks and wanting to just talk through it and go through the experience of like, all right, what is this workbook about? And let's just kind of dive in and try it ourselves. And then we'll make an assessment from there. So it started with us doing it together, really having a lot of ahas about how each other works and giving each other guidance, etc. And then Carrie is kind of the champion of our book clubs as an organization, whether it be Kolbe or otherwise. And so she decided like, hey, everybody's got an A now pretty much. We're definitely talking about this more. I want to offer this as an option. And it's completely voluntary. I mean, you definitely need to volunteer to do it. We don't force people to do it necessarily. So yeah, it was really just like continuing the mantra and continuing the messaging, right? Of, all right, who's really bought into Kolbe? Who wants to learn more about how they best work? And let's give them an opportunity, and then do it in an intimate group setting to where you can like work with your peers and hear what others have to say and get good guidance that way. So I think that's ultimately, it started with the two of us and then she branched it out to others. So, and I know they've had a couple of meetings and folks are very much into it. And that's starting to introduce the B and C, or like the team Kolbe information too. So like the folks that are part of the book club are like, hey, I'd like to get my team's MO. Like, can you please send it to me? I really would like to understand this team dynamic. So, and that's really where we want to go next, is really promoting the understanding of team dynamic and ultimately hiring to that. So yeah, that's kind of the next evolution for us with Kolbe.
Thank you so much to Riff and Riverstone for your exceptional work with Kolbe and for understanding the value in instinctive strengths. This is really, really important right now. As always, if you are just learning about Kolbe, the best place to start is by taking your Kolbe A index on kolbe.com. Also, remember that we have Kolbe certified consultants around the globe. So if you want to work with a consultant in your area, head to kolbe.com and just look for the consultant listing and see if there's somebody who you can work with. If not, send us a note and we will try to match you up as best as we can. As always, thank you for listening to Powered by Instinct, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for checking out this episode of Powered by Instinct. This show is brought to you by Kolbe Corp, a company that helps leaders and organizations thrive using the only instinctive strengths assessment on the market. If you enjoyed this episode, then follow Powered by Instinct wherever you get your favorite podcasts, or join us online at kolbe.com/podcast for all the latest episodes.